Clearly, there is a potential to have a no-deal Brexit. There was a poll last week, a Sky Data poll, which showed that 74% of the public think no deal is better than a bad deal. There are some people who seem to think any deal is better than no deal. I think by definition that strikes me as wrong. But what gets me about this piece is MPs saying, oh, well, we'll stop Brexit if there is no deal. Well, Article 50 was triggered on March the 29th this year. Under the terms of Article 50, which as far as I'm aware is completely irrevocable, we will leave the European Union and be free from the European Union on March the 30th, 2019, which means it's incumbent on MPs to ensure that the legislation is in place, to ensure that there is that smooth transition from our current state to our future state.
I'm for some reason obsessed with asking legal questions tonight, but I did always wonder if it is indeed irrevocable, that if both sides, in other words, the UK and Brussels, agreed to revoking Article 50, then surely it's not irrevocable in this year. It would be a new contract, presumably.
I wouldn't consider myself a constitutional lawyer, but I would think that anything that's passed by Parliament can be revoked by Parliament. Anything that's agreed by the European Parliament can be revoked by European Parliament. This is something that the reality might be very different to what people are saying.
I think you'll find it would need unanimity amongst every single other European Union state in order to do that. And let's not forget, at the end of the day, the British people last year voted, 17.4 million of us, for Brexit. If the government were to basically turn around and say, actually, we're not going to do it, I think if you thought that public confidence was hit by the expenses scandal in 2009, that would seem like a tea party to the public uproar you would see if the government were to try and stop proceeding with our departure from the EU.
Do you agree, Nasir?
I certainly think that there would be a serious crisis, but I think Jonathan again will know more than I do. I think the polls are switching slightly, and more people now wouldn't necessarily want to exit as they
That's
vote.
not true. I mean, consistently this year, YouGov have found that 70% of the British people want the government to get on with delivering Brexit. In fact, the majority of people who voted Remain want the government with getting on delivering the vote that happened last year.
Certainly, I believe I would have voted Remain, or I did vote Remain, but I would happily, and we now need to do exactly what the people voted for. The reality is, of course, that it's a lot more complicated than we thought it was.
Well, and because it is a lot more complicated than most people thought it was, Nasir, does that not mean that the referendum didn't ask the right question?
Well, the referendum asked one question and not a series of questions, and I suspect that's probably because they should expect their politicians and their leaders to be able to deal with the detail. But we didn't even ask about Northern Ireland, for example. No, I don't remember ever being mentioned during the campaign. Whereas that's a major issue if there's no deal. So we've got to do the best with what we've got.
Jonathan?
I still think no deal is not likely. No deal is certainly not the ideal outcome, but it is certainly an outcome we have to consider. And indeed, it's an outcome we have to prepare for. And this is why there's been such anger at Philip Hammond over the last week, who said he wasn't going to spend any money preparing for no deal until the last possible moment. Because if we haven't prepared for no deal, then the European Union have us over a barrel. And effectively, that would give us the worst possible negotiation position to be in.